Something, you know, it's interesting when we hear about the work that we do, because sometimes I know you probably, like many women that I talk to, we get up every day and we do, as they say, we do that thing, and we don't take the time to look back and kind of reflect on our journeys, and I definitely, your journey has been an exciting one. And I decided I wanted to start my questions to you this morning, our conversation here together, by a quote that's on your website, and I saw it on many other places to where your work is being revealed. And it states that women, teens, and girls who are empowered to nurture themselves are also empowered to nurture their families, communities, and generations. Tell us what you mean by that quote and what you were trying to relay in that quote.
Sure. The quote, the idea for the quote came back when I was doing my doctorate, and I wanted to focus on women's health. And my dissertation was on preeclampsia and eclampsia. And as I dived deep into the research, I realized how important it was for a woman in her pre reproductive years to be healthy, because whatever the interuterine environment is, whatever is going on in our bodies, that's what that's the legacy we create in our children. That's the legacy we create in our families. So, as I started thinking more and then doing more research for my dissertation, I realized that if we women, from a very young age, starting as young as when we're able to cook, get in the kitchen or learn about nutrition, if we have that knowledge and we're empowered, then we have the power to create legacies of health for many generations. I'm very passionate about creating a legacy and a legacy of health in communities of color, because we bear the burden, unfortunately, of the most of the lifestyle related illnesses. And it would be it's such a simple thing when you think about just the change in lifestyle, change in nutrition, and how that affects future generations. We talk about epigenetics, which means a woman is able to actually turn on and off some of the genes that will be expressed in her child's life, in her children's life. So just by the way we eat, or our body weight, and other lifestyle factors, stress. The funny thing is, what my work is primarily focused on food and plant-based cooking and eating, but I also, because of my background, try to bring in some holistic care in terms of lifestyle medicine, where it relates to sleep and stress and community and all those other factors that will actually affect our health as women. And so, I'm very passionate about trying to create a legacy of health so that our future generations actually have the opportunity to thrive and to be healthy.
And that's exactly why we wanted you to be on the show today, because you really touched what they say, the heart of the matter for us. And I want to step back a little bit and talk about the history of the relationship of food to the African American family, and how that relationship has impacted our history and where we are right now from a health standpoint, from our family lives, etc.
Right. So very, very simple. Before our enslavement, the foods that we typically ate on the continent were plant foods. We ate very little meat. Maybe there was some fish every now and again. But when we were on the continent, that was our diet: plant-based foods that were nutrient dense, very delicious, because plant foods are delicious and they can be made delicious, but foods that supported our health and our thriving as individuals and as a community. But with our enslavement and the Middle Passage and coming here, we all know our food history in terms of soul food and receiving the scraps, and that's fantastic because we have been able under such duress to create food that is really innovative and delicious. So we have a rich cultural history, but nonetheless, I am of the camp of we eat foods that are good for us, that are good for us and to us, and that they can still be nutritious. So I try to make sure when I'm working with people that we do still incorporate and make sure we're focused on foods that are representative of the African diaspora, whatever part of the world that is, and still allow it to be, still play it up that, we're trying to go for health and flavor. That's my big thing.
Yeah.
I know, sometimes when I counsel people, they're like, what are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me to just eat kale? No, I mean, you can eat your yams and sweet potato, but then we talk about different cooking methods and how exactly you're going to season your yams and sweet potatoes. Focus on building flavor as opposed to adding a whole lot of salt or animal protein products, because the science is very, very clear about plant-based eating. And I want to clarify when I say plant-based eating, I mean eating plants, eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and tubers, so like root vegetables and beans and peas and lentils and all those foods. I'm not necessarily talking about the packaged, when we hear plant-based, vegan bacon and this and that. I'm talking about the plant foods, the ones that come from the earth, and you eat them as close to nature as they were, close to what they were when they were in nature. So I think we need to remember that our original cultural heritage was plant-based eating and nutrition. That's what our bodies thrived on. That's what really is like homecoming for our DNA, of sorts. So yesterday, it's so funny we're talking about this, because yesterday I had a guest on my kitchen conversation, Chef Cece Payon, and she also has a very extensive career around foods for African diaspora. And we were talking about the fact that, this is a really good time with COVID and health, and now that we see our health disparities in our communities being magnified because of COVID, now is really a good time to embrace our cultural history of plant-based eating. So that's a fantastic question. I would love to unpack it some more, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we need a whole different kitchen conversation about that. But and I want to say too, I think this, like I said, I've been following your work now for a little over a year, and I remember when I was in college, I read a series of books by the author Achebe, and he talked about, of course, the history of what life was like for us on the continent. This rich, powerful, amazing life that we had, and food was such a celebration. It would not only was a celebration, but it empowered, and it was celebrated, and it was awarded, and so it was such an important role, played an important role in our lives back then. And so I'm so excited that you are bringing that back to us. And I think right now we're in the midst of COVID, where many of us are not working. This gives us time to go back and explore those things, that particular cooking and all those foods, the sweet potato and all of those kind of things, and look at how we can get back to creative with it and allow us to empower it. And also, I think most importantly, to share that history of food with our children, because you talk a lot about creating a new type of future for our children.
Absolutely. And, we want to make sure that we're creating a legacy of health and leaving a legacy of health. Oftentimes we talk about legacy in terms of finances. If you don't have health, you can't make any money. So, with the type 2 diabetes and all the other illnesses that we have plaguing our our communities, it's really important, I think, for us to kind of go back and lean into where we came from. For me, food represents several things. It represents love made visible, because we get to pour our heart out on the plate for our loved ones. It represents politics and power, because as you touched on, there's a lot going on with our food systems. Why we have, besides our enslavement, our food systems, the food apartheid and the food swamps and the food deserts, there's a lot going on around food that's beyond, the Instagram pictures that we see.
Right.
There's a whole food system, and those who are in public health and those who are in advocacy know these things. But food is politics and power. Food is celebratory. Food is community. Food is family. So yeah, food represents a lot. It's not just medicine, and it can be. Food can also be medicine, but it's so much more. Incidentally, since we're sitting here, I wanted to share this book. This is an amazing book that I think everybody should take a chance and get. Eric Adams, he is the Brooklyn Borough president, and incidentally, I'm from New York, so, but he just released this book, Healthy at Last, and he gave his testimony about how he reversed type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
I'm saying this because I know that we are here in Mississippi, and that's one of our challenges. And he did it by just changing his lifestyle, including plant-based eating and embracing the power of plant-based eating. So he talks about reversing, when he went to the doctor, and people can Google his name and get the full story. When he went to the doctor, his eyesight was bad. He had a stomach ulcer. His hemoglobin A1C was about a 16. And he just had neuropathy and a lot of issues going on. The doctor said, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to give you some medication. And then he went on to find some information about plant-based eating. When he got back to the doctor, he had lost, I think, like 20 or 30 pounds. His A1C was below, it was about 6 or 7.
Wow.
His eyesight cleared up. There was no stomach ulcer. So he had embraced that lifestyle, that way of eating. His mom, who was, I think for 20 years or so, 15, 20 years, was on diabetic medication. Like his whole family, essentially, they were diabetics. And when they started embracing this new way of eating and living, diabetes medication is gone, and on and on and on. So the book goes through his testimony. It has some recipes. I have one of my recipes in here, and it also talks about preventing other chronic illnesses or curing other chronic illnesses like cancer, and even preventing Alzheimer's, dementia, and arthritis even. Plant-based, the science behind plant-based eating is extensive heart disease and actually reversing blockage to the arteries. So I could go on and on because I'm always very excited about the restoration that happens when people make a switch.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that a little later. And give me the doctor's name again, the name of the book.
It's called Healthy at Last, and it's by Eric Adams.
Okay. And is it available on, where is it available?
It's available, you can get it on Amazon.
Okay. Okay, and we'll continue to share that too. Healthy at Last, Dr. Eric Adams on Amazon. So I hope you all are listening to that, and we'll continue to share that too. And we love to hear those particular type of stories. And I got some questions around that too. But also I want to, because this is the Working Woman Report, I want to find out a little bit more information on you and your journey. Because this is also an opportunity for us to, and I think when we talk about the history of families of color, one of the things that we're known for is sharing our stories to allow them to inspire and uplift. And your journey is one that's definitely that. And I love to talk to women who are walking in their purpose and decide to push beyond fear and do what they need to do to live their lives of passion. So talk to us about what was the catalyst for this particular journey around food. What led to it? Did you, as a little girl, did you run around with sweet potatoes and tomatoes in your hand and say, I want to be a chef one day? Or what was it that led to this whole life of around food and nutrition, etc.?
Well, I'll say this for the purposes of inspiration. It's a long, convoluted story. Nobody wants to talk about their long, convoluted story, so I'll shorten it. I grew up in Guyana. I came here to the Bronx when I was 11 with my mom and sister. And shortly when we got here, a lot of my mom's siblings started dying. They would die from complications of heart disease. So they would die from complications of type 2 diabetes, cancer. So a lot in a short, maybe a 3-year span, they started dying. And at that time, I was a teenager, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I wanted to go be a psychologist. Started out in psychology, and somehow ended up, please don't ask me how, ended up graduating with a bachelor's in fire investigation because I decided I wanted to be one of the Black women who would change the way the New York Fire Department looked at the time. Needless to say, that was like not going to happen for whatever reason. But I wanted to be a trailblazer and a pioneer, and I saw, not many of us in that particular field. I wanted to go there, but God said no. So God brought to my remembrance all of my mom's siblings and how they passed away. And by that time, I had enough knowledge and awareness to know that most of the reasons why they passed was because of the way they ate and the way they lived. And that it was totally preventable, which was heartbreaking because if had I known or somebody known or whatever, they could have still be alive. So that kind of triggered me to go get a master's in nutrition and become a registered dietitian. But when I got to being a registered dietitian, I realized that it was, the way I was trained was very clinical. There wasn't much room for addressing the social determinants of health. So like access to food and all the different other parts of the social determinants of health that would actually affect us as people of color, contribute to our health. So I wanted it to be broader than just food. I wanted to learn about food systems. I wanted to learn about policy and politics and how all of this plays into health and how it all plays into eating. So I did the doctorate, worked for a little bit, and then ended up in 2017, like in the middle of trying to start a professional career in research and whatnot. The Lord said, no, I need you to go to culinary school. I'm a woman of faith, so I try to be attentive to what God is saying and what He wants from me. Because I promised when I got baptized that I would be everything that He wanted me to be. That I would exhaust, I would live a life that's poured out. So at the end of my days, nobody could say that she did that. I did that. I did whatever the Lord said. So go to I heard this direction, like go to culinary school, and when you're finished, go to a place where there are food deserts. And so I went to culinary school, graduated at the age of 40, which was wild. But I loved my time there. And then it was time for me to move here. So I moved here about 2 years ago with the direction that go to culinary school, and when you're done, you need to find places where there are food deserts. And so, and make a difference, because now you're fully trained and you have all the gifts and talents and elemental P's behind your name to actually do that. So I ended up coming here for that reason, and that's how my path has been. A lot of shifting, a lot of pivoting, a lot of definitely fear and like, God, did I really hear you? Because of course the journey is not as straightforward. There is the sort of the end. Sort of God kind of gives you a little to in the end, but then the steps that you need to take, you don't see like a path like the Michael Jackson video where the whole path, the path kind of lights up. Yeah. You see maybe one square light up every now and again, and so to have the trust in God, the patience, the continual fellowship is really important. I think that's why God works with us that way, because He knows that if He gave us the whole thing, we would just run with it. But and we have to stay in fellowship to get every little piece and to try to figure out, from Him, have Him direct us about how all the pieces fit together and what He really wants. So that's like the short version of it. Yeah.
Well, that's a powerful version of it, and for sure. And because I'm a Mississippian and we're talking to a lot of Mississippians, you said that one of the things that God said is find a food desert. And you chose, Mississippi was that choice. And you could have went to a lot of different other places, even right here in the United States. So why Mississippi?
Prior to that direction, I had a visit here because I was, at the time, while I was still teaching in Alabama, I was a fellow with the UMMC health disparities. I was doing like a health disparities training with Dr. Bettina Beach and her team. So I visited Mississippi before, kind of went around. And this was the only place that God took me and showed me. I remember coming and meeting with Miss Bettina Burt, and she was still at the Mississippi Urban League. I remember driving around and seeing downtown Jackson, and I just remember seeing the potential. And for some reason, I'm always attracted to what is not yet. What something could be. So I was very drawn for some reason to all the possibilities of what I had seen Mississippi was, and for whatever reason things changed, and I started digging into history and found out about the migration and a little bit of a political history, and because I'd known nothing about Mississippi, I knew it was one of the states, and that was it. And so as I started to find out more and more, I just felt more and more drawn to what could be, and the fact that I have, there's a quote that says that we never know, we have to obey because we never know whose life or death situation is actually tied to our obedience. And so it felt that strong for me. So that's why I ended up, after about a year of hedging in New York after culinary school, I just couldn't let it go. So I just pretty much put everything I could fit in my car and drove down here. No job at the time, but, God worked it out.
Well, hallelujah. I mean, great. We're so glad that you chose Mississippi and that God pointed you in this direction. And I want to talk a little bit about the illness. We've been talking a little bit here and there about the different illnesses that specifically impact families of color. And we know that even in the midst of, and I think it's a very relevant conversation right now when we're in the midst of COVID-19 and the numbers are getting ready to spike again or spiking again. And so families of color in many areas have already been challenged even pre-COVID-19 around health. I mean, I can remember when I was diagnosed at 16 years old with high blood pressure. And it's been a challenge up and down for me over the years. I've lost a lot of weight, and then I got off the medication and gained a few of the pounds back. And then I got into a heavy career of a lot of stress. So I had to get back on the medication just to be able to help manage that stress instead of stopping and doing what I needed to do from a health standpoint to get it done. But many of us are like that. And but where a lot of us are, you talked about food deserts. A lot of times that communities are not in a space where they can easily access that plant-based product, that they can transform their lives in that way. And also because as you talked about earlier, we have this history. So if you come from a family who have cooked a certain kind of way and ate a certain kind of way, then you as a teenager, then you as a young adult, and then you as a parent, then you as a grandparent, you continue to have that history evolve in your lives, and it never changes unless there's somebody that makes that shift, or there's information that allows that family to make a shift. So my question regarding this is, just starting very small, what can you share with families of communities right now to say, this is where you can start right now where you are, right now with where you are, right now with what you have, to begin to make that shift in your eating habits, in your lifestyle, so you can change not only your life now, but for future generations?
Right. Absolutely. Great question. I think we have, for the most part, more than we think we have in our communities. And I say this because we have potential. We have potential in terms of our ingenuity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so in terms of eating, I would say, even at the dollar store, there's the frozen section where they're frozen vegetables and fruit. I'm not sure. I know some dollar stores, maybe not in Mississippi, but I've seen in some dollar stores they have actually fresh produce.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, frozen vegetables, frozen fruit. Eat it. Start eating it. Start preparing it. I'm a very firm believer of trying to use the resources we have. So we start growing our own, even if it's to have an herb garden. Herbs and spices are one of those superfoods that people miss out on. They in very small amounts. So like a teaspoon, half a teaspoon of clove has about the same amount of antioxidants as one of those like a cup of blueberries or whatnot. So definitely eating, planting our own food as much as we're able to will definitely help us to increase our intake of plant-based food. So what I'm not saying is go buy a whole bunch of packaged vegan food. I won't even call them plant-based necessarily. What I am saying is, however, you can add more fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds and grains and beans and peas to your regular eating pattern in a way that makes sense for you. So I'm not saying that because I'm the dietitian or the whatever, just eat this type of food and you don't like it. So in the dollar store, whatever sometimes it's dry lentils, sometimes there's other dry legumes.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one, try a new one every week or every month. Try to prepare it different ways. Try to do like a meatless Monday. Maybe that would be a really good place to start, to say, okay, on next Monday, or Taco Tuesday, next Monday, I'm going to make some lentil soup. It's getting cool now, so I make some soup. Or on Taco Tuesday, instead of eating meat taco, I throw some black beans in there, some other red beans. My red beans and rice is,
it's a hearty meal.
Right. Mm-hmm. So definitely I'm saying, however you can find foods that are not animal-based, add them to the plate. Try to make them more of the focus. Definitely try to grow your own food as much as possible. And so that's an individual approach. As a community approach, I know that we're socially distancing, but one of the things I love about the work that Regina Boykins does with the extension program in the Delta is that they have a community garden. So our community is rich in terms of church and faith, faith. So to build a culture of health around our faith based organizations, I think is a really good place to start. Not only can we get gardens going so that not one person is responsible for all the work, we share the work, but we also, there are kitchens in our faith based organization. So even if it's one person who has knowledge of how to prepare foods healthier, prepare for the rest of the congregation, that's another way. So for instance, for me, I just started doing this with my church. I'm really excited. Once a month, one Saturday a month, I prepare food, and the church comes together. When we're not able to come together for fellowship meals anymore, so that's our opportunity to embrace plant-based eating and also to get a little bit of social interaction in. So
that's a wonderful idea, with even parishioners working together to prepare that meal. That is just exciting, because now you're doing more than it goes beyond eating. You're empowering communities, you're building relationships, you're inspiring each other, and in that process, and I know we women of color, we're sharing all other kind of resources and information too, and asking questions about our businesses and situations that happen with our children, and next thing you know, we walk away with more than just a dish, Yeah.
And that is exactly why I love food, because you can create a community around food, and then you have social support, which is important. You address things and that helps with mental health, and so it addresses other things beyond just the food.
Right.
It really is an amazing way to create a culture of health.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about your work. Of course, we've been talking about this, this amazing career and how you're empowering individuals and your purpose. But you've also, I was reading briefly even your bio, and then some of the products that have come out of this. Even, of course, this amazing collection of resources of She That Food, with the podcasts and the workshops and things like that. But now you have this product line of spices. How did it start there, and what are some of the other things you plan to add to those products and services to share with us?
Sure. So I started with seasonings because I recognized that I think one of my purposes and roles with this plant-based eating and wellness is to help people to transition to the other side, or at least partly. So when we hear, for the typical person who doesn't know much about plant-based eating, if you don't present it right, then they're not going to get the benefits. And I'm very passionate about how it affects our health and the healing properties of it. So for me, I wanted to make sure that people would get excited.
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges, I won't say challenges, but one of the considerations of plant-based eating is that plant foods, especially vegetables, they tend to be like a blank canvas. There's whatever seasoning you put on them, that's what they're going to taste like. And for most people, they may not necessarily think about seasoning and flavor. They're just like, okay, such and such said that plant foods are healthy, so I'm going to eat them. And then they don't like it because it doesn't taste good. So everything I do in terms of the plant-based cooking and eating, I try to make it fun and entertaining and relatable and tasty. So that's why I wanted to start with the flavor in the box seasoning. Right now, I have a pilot meal prep. Every Sunday, I put out a menu on Tuesday, my social media pages, and then people will order. They're typically 2 entrees and some sides, and it's all plant-based. And so typically people will order by Thursday at 7 p.m. And then they come. I work out of my church has a church school in South Jackson. And so they come there to pick up the food on Sunday afternoons once I'm done cooking. Because I recognize that the thing is, there's some people who will probably know enough in terms of skill or have enough skill to actually try some of the plant-based recipes. And then there's some people, they don't want to cook. They don't like to cook. They don't want to cook. But
or have the time to cook, And what I love about this is that they can start with picking up a few meals over maybe a 4-week period, and then that gives them the time to kind of transition into, like you said, experimenting on that own. So I love that idea. And when we women, even though a lot of us, we enjoy cooking, but when to really enjoy the whole experience of cooking is, you can't be stressed out. You can't have a lot of other stuff going, and who has many of those days, So it has to be. There's a very rare occasion sometimes when you can say, I'm going to really take the time to enjoy to do this. So I love that idea of being able to pick up food that is freshly cooked and to be able to try.
Right. Just a sample. So going forward, I'm working on figuring out how to scale up because it definitely needs to be scaled up. I'm grateful to my church and how they supported this part of the project, but I do need to find another place where I can do more days of prepping where people can have the option of picking up just besides Sunday. The other part that I want to add to it, when people leave the hospital and they leave with diet prescriptions, low salt, no added salt, low fat, oftentimes they do not know what to do with that. They don't know how to translate that into food. And so part of my big picture idea to scale up at some point, which I know God is going to do, declaring it, is to be that go-between in a plant-based way, to be that go-between, okay, I have this diet prescription and I'm supposed to eat this way, but I don't know how. I'm going to go to, whatever I call it, Fiona's place, and be able to pick up a meal that fits my diet prescription. I mean, I'm really passionate about this because I know that a lot of times, because people don't know how or they can't translate it, they end up back in the hospital. And sometimes their conditions take a turn for the worse. I remember, and this was partly inspired by a friend of mine. Just before I moved here, one of the reasons I was excited also to move here is because I had a really good colleague, super lovely lady. And when I visited the second time, I found out she had cancer. And by the time I was able to really connect with her, she was at a really bad stage. And I remember her family members being really overwhelmed because, it's a lot. And so for them to try to think about what they should eat and then what they should feed her and on and on and on, I just thought, like, there has to be a service or something, a go-between where, if my family member is diagnosed with cancer or whatever illness, I should be able to just go grab something that is going to heal them or at least improve their quality of life while they're still with me.
Right. I cared for my husband who had many health challenges for the last few years of his life. And that was a challenge for us. He had good days, he had bad days. And food was always that challenge for us. What can I get not only to perk his taste buds so that he would enjoy the food. I mean, as a loved one that's dealing with illness or having health challenges, you don't want them to just eat food for sustenance. You want them to really to enjoy that. You want to be able to sit down and enjoy it with them. And so that's wonderful. This is just amazing. I am so excited about this conversation. And so tell me, you have a couple of podcasts too that I want people to connect into. We talked about Kitchen Conversations, and tell us about your podcast that's out there and where can we connect with those?
Sure. I haven't really turned them into podcasts. They're usually Facebook Live.
Okay.
So every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, on Facebook, my handle is She Did That Food 77. people can tune in, and usually I'm talking about some sort of specific illness or ingredients and how they're beneficial for health, and then I do a quick demo. Or I invite one of my colleagues, a professional chef or somebody who's in lifestyle medicine, to kind of do the same. So there's always some sort of cooking, a demo. And then on Tuesdays, it's not every Tuesday, it depends on when my guests are available. But at least once a month on a Tuesday, I will do the kitchen conversation on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. And we would have sort of like an interview conversation about health and cooking and all those things. So Tuesday, Thursday, every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, at least once a month on a Tuesday. And it's She Did That Food 77.
Okay. And you have a website too, shedidthatfood.com. And people can find out, they can see your bio there and some other information that you're doing there. I think you've listed some books and things like that too. And recipes, I thought I saw some recipes there. Yeah.
So on the website, there's my store where they can purchase the flavor in a box seasonings. There is the playback. There are a lot of the playbacks from the cooking demos and the kitchen conversations. And I did author a few journals, prayer journals, because I'm very big on helping others as well as myself connect with God in creative ways. So there's some journals there, and they're specifically for women of color, and there's one about confidence for young girls. So there's a lot going on my website, and then there's information about the meal prep, so people can see some of the food that I've already prepped and some of the menus and things like that.
Well, Women for Progress is going to be reaching out to you because we want this to be an ongoing conversation, and we want to be able to continue to share. Of course, I want to tell people that we were excited also to be recognizing She Did That Food as the woman-owned business of the month of October. So kudos and pat on the back for that. Because your work is outstanding, and we love to recognize innovative leadership, and you definitely did that. So we thank you for accepting that honor, and just want to say thank you for everything you do and all that you are.
And I just want to say thank you to you. Thank you for the recognition. Thank you for the honor. Thank you for sharing your platform with me. And I am inspired by what you do as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want us to kind of close out. I can't believe it happens all the time. I call up women to be part of it. They say, you want me for the whole hour? And I said, look, it will fly by as it has so far. But you also are an entrepreneur. And of course, like I said, a woman-owned business that are doing the work that you do, like so many women are. But you talked about your journey and this amazing process that you started out doing one thing that you thought your life should be. And then once you surrendered that life to God, then He really led you to His purpose. So I want you to share with women on what you would share with them about living and working your passion and what brings you joy. And I would like you to touch a little bit on how God has led your life to success that you have had so far. But that passion and joy piece I want you to touch on.
So I'm very big on authenticity. I remember as far back as probably last year or even earlier this year, pre-COVID, just living a life that was not necessarily authentically me. There were elements of it. And I remember God would challenge me, and when I would have certain jobs, they would be really good jobs, paid well and everything. And then God would challenge me about alignment with what He wants, how He created me to be as He revealed that, and the alignment with whatever the position was. And so slowly but surely, God would prod me a little more and a little more, and there would be this sort of uncomfortable, I won't say dissatisfaction, but sort of restlessness in environments and places and relationships and whatnot that just were not in alignment with who and how God created me to be. So that challenged me to really dig deep to find out, like, who is Fiona? Mm-hmm. What is Fiona about? And so as I did that, I realized the more that I know myself, the more that I embrace who I really am and not who my family knew me to be before I left the Bronx, or who my college colleagues knew me to be, the more I step out and connect more with God and learn more about who I am, is the more joy, the fullness of myself I can bring to my business and to what I'm doing. I can show up a whole lot more present and more genuine and relatable when I know myself and I live in my truth about who I am. And so that's a process. That's a process that I believe will take a lifetime. This sort of rediscovering and discovering my authenticity. In fact, I wanted to share this. I'm recruiting for a book project. It's called The Phoenix Phenom. And the imagery, if people who are watching or will watch can look at the imagery of a phoenix, where ever so often the phoenix has to die to become a more authentic version of itself, but every time it dies, it's more and more beautiful. So I would say, don't be afraid to shift, pivot, let things die, as it were, let things fall apart, as it were, so that you can find out who you really are, and so that you can bring that real person to your business, to your marriage, to your family, to whatever context you are in. There's nothing like doing that will give you like lasting peace and joy, irregardless of what your circumstances. When the business is not doing well, you still got joy. If your marriage is still, on the rock, because you're being yourself, you're experiencing and showing up as yourself.
Right. Oh my goodness, that is powerful. I know, like I said, I've been watching your journey now for over a year. And it's like the good Lord has been just pushing you toward us and me in this conversation, because I receive everything you say individually today. And for all the women that are listening out there, for everybody that's listening, young girls, the entrepreneurs, the businesswomen, I hope that this conversation has empowered you and inspired you as it has me. This has been a wonderful conversation. We've been talking to Dr. Fiona B. Lewis of She Did That Food and so much, much more. We want you to reach out to her. Again, she every Thursday at 6 p.m. you can connect with her on her Facebook page, and also at least once a month on Tuesday. But we'll share all of that out again too, not only on our Facebook and social media, but we'll share it out on our e-blast to all of the folks who could not sit in with us today for lunch. This again has been a wonderful conversation. We are so blessed here in Mississippi to have you, Dr. Lewis. I tell you, I'm so excited on how this conversation is going to lead to so much more. I believe that once you connect to individuals like yourself, that you got to move it forward and to continue to inspire and uplift others. So we're going to be reaching out to do exactly that with you. And I'll follow up from this conversation. So, because there's so many opportunities, I want to invite people to reach out to you also. If they're looking for somebody to speak to their church organization or their women's organization or their business, I think you would be an incredible speaker to be able to share as you have shared with us today. So I want to invite folks to do that. Also individually, if you're suffering from diabetes, if you're having health issues, if you're overweight, if you just want to get healthy, and if you're like me, I am so sick and tired of taking blood pressure medications that I have decided I'm going to stop and do what I need to do to make that happen. And also when we hear that blood pressure medications is being taken off the market because of the damaging effects, and I say to myself all the time, but some of us has been on this medication for years, and now, and you're telling us now that it's going to infect our lives. At that point, what do? You got to move to another medication or all those kind of things. And then you don't know what the long-term effects that is already done on our organs and our mental health and all those kind of things. So this has been a very relevant conversation, and we thank you so much again, Dr. Lewis, for sitting in. You've been listening to the Working Woman Report. We're right here every Wednesday from 12 to 1 for the lunchtime hour. I want you to also tune in tomorrow night at Thursday on this same Facebook page and on all of our radio networks. We're live on all of those radio networks also. But tomorrow at 5:30 is our regular flagship program, the Women for Progress radio show, Man Cave Edition. Yes, we bring men into the conversation. And tomorrow, believe it or not, they're talking about domestic violence. So it's going to be interesting to hear from this perspective from men. We hear, a lot of times we hear about the women as victims. And now men have become victims of domestic violence, but we don't all the time hear it from the perspective of men. And so they're going to be having that conversation tomorrow. Two of our hosts, men hosts, is going to be hosting that program. So tomorrow at 5:30. If you can't log in here on Facebook, like I said, check out all of our radio networks and our website again, womenforprogressradio.com for the radio show, womenforprogressradio.com. There's a little button on the very first page. Click to go live or listen to some of the previous shows. So because we wanted to make it accessible for you. And of course, if you want to join the work of Women for Progress, go to our website at womenforprogress.net. womenforprogress.net. We're looking for powerful women to join the effort, to use this organization, which has been in place over 43 years. In 2020, we are celebrating over 43 years of community service. Women come together to use their talents, their skills, their knowledge to empower their communities and empower themselves. So if you'd like to join this organization, please go to our website. There's a join button there and very easy process for you to become a part of this work. No, we're not a sorority. No, we're not a social club. We empower our community. So you got to come wanting to join us in the effort and decide on you how to decide you want to use your talent, your skills, and your resources to empower your community. If you're already part of doing some great work out there and you just want to link your work with our work, then that's what we're there for there also. We want to be a vehicle for you to empower what you do and uplift what you do. And so we want you to reach out to us. And if you just want to ask us questions, our telephone number is 601-259-6770, 601-259-6770. Our email address is mail, M-A-I-L, at womenforprogress.net, mail at womenforprogress.net. And if you need help in any genre, in any area, please reach out to us. We don't have all the answers. We don't have mortgage loans or all those kind of things, but we do what we do. And if we can't have the answer for you, we will reach out and make sure that we connect you with the right source. So do not hesitate to call on us. We want to help you. And finally, I want to say, let's march to the polls on November 3rd. We got to march to the polls like we are kings and queens and lions and tigers and bears and all of that stuff. So we need to do it boldly. And when we look back, we got to have 20 or 50 people behind us marching in at different times during the day and making sure that we vote and we transform lives. And don't think that all the time it's about what you want to vote against. It's sometimes just simply what you're voting for. Okay? So thank you so much. This has been the Working Woman Report. See you same time next week. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Have a wonderful day.